Alrighty, well, welcome to the Degen Roundtable. This is Degen Insights. So today we're going to be talking about specifically something called LPing or farming yielding, however you want to put it. Basically, it's the entire idea of you put a coin into something and then they give you coins back out for putting that coin in there, right? So we're going to go into some details about exactly what it is. It can be kind of tricky for some people, maybe a little bit scary for newer people. They just generally won't do it. Oftentimes there's a consensus of, hey, just hold the coin, right? However, you can hold the coin while receiving more coins and ultimately give yourself like a money printer, right? So we're going to kind of go a deep dive into that. So right off the bat, yielding is one of my favorite things. I work a lot, and in working a lot, I don't get a lot of time to sit there on the charts and figure out exactly how things are going to go, where they're going to go. Oh, something is popping off right now. I need to flip it into something else, right? I don't have a lot of time for that, and that ultimately is trading. I guess my only option at that point would just be holding, right? Yeah, but am I just going to hold a coin for years, move it into a stable, and then at that point in time, start taking that money and slowly drip feeding myself to retire a little bit? That's not me. What I prefer to do is take those gains, stick it into something, and then that amount, that original principal is going to stay like that for that amount of mini coins, and then it'll continue drip feeding me something I can retire on. That's my idea, right? I call that a money printer because you got something that has been built, a printer has been built, and now it's drip feeding you money. That way you can retire. That's my idea. And in working and all that, you know what? I'll go and make some money so that way I can throw it into crypto and increase the amount of money printers I got. So that's kind of the introduction of what my thoughts are on exactly what LPing and everything are. Kind of what's your thoughts, Will, about exactly, what it is, like what do you think about the idea of it?
So there's liquidity providing, which is that's one way to earn yield. Another way to earn yield is through staking. But essentially it's just you take your money and you lock it up as a service providing mechanism, So with Hex, there's burning. You can burn your Hex, you can destroy the coins, and in return for that, you get these little devices called T-shares that will generate more Hex for you later whenever you decide to end your little burn or stake or whatever you want to call it. With icosahedron, you can lock up coins, basically do the same thing, earn more of them through the act of locking them up, which allows locking the coins up allows the people who want to keep them liquid be able to trade and get better prices on them because there's less circulating supply in the marketplace and stuff like that. And then there's liquidity providing, which is essentially you take your coins to an exchange, whether it's Fux or PulseX or Uniswap or PancakeSwap or any sort of thing. You take your coins and you throw them into a pool, right? You throw in two coins, like the coin number 1 and coin number 2, and they're paired together, and they have like this fancy schmancy little math ratio that will add and subtract and multiply and divide and do all sorts of crazy things, and that kicks out a price for everyone else. But anyways, liquidity providing and yielding is just a strategy that allows you to use your wealth that you have generated over time to it allows you to put your wealth to work without you actually doing anything actively to have it generate value. So
Yeah, the cool thing about liquidity providing too, that I've noticed is oftentimes, especially like you want to build your money printers generally in a bear market because everything tends to go up, right? And so the cool thing about that is you're building it there, and then you're still holding those coins, right?
yeah,
And it's just giving you more of them. So
but it's also
we'll
where
go
the
into,
best prices are, when you're in the
yeah,
bear market. So
for sure.
you could build the biggest yield printer, the biggest money machines, because you get the coins at rock bottom prices. and then you put them to work doing whatever, whether it's LPing or whether it's yielding or whether it's burning and staking and all that crap. You buy the coins for rock bottom low prices, and then you set them to work, and then they generate you more coins, and then theoretically, anyways, the coin's value goes up as the bull market
Theoretically.
starts
Yeah,
kicking. Yeah, theoretically, or it all goes to zero, and then you're fucked.
And the interesting thing too is that generally speaking, like in a bear market, that's when you're looking at the amount of coins you have. In a bull market, you're looking at the amount of dollars it's worth, right? And
Yes.
so like that's the really cool thing about the yielding is that you're building the amount of coins you got versus the actual dollar amount you're getting out. So, and I know like Jeff, what's your thoughts on that?
No, you crushed it. So my brother is the person who got me into crypto, and when he explained it to me, when it got to him was, I'm not looking at dollar values. The name of my game is how do I get more coins? And once I started looking at it like that, that was the trick. Don't look at dollar value. This coin's going to be worth more in the future. I want more of it. So but no, I mean, LP is cool. I didn't have a ton of experience in the beginning, honestly. The first time I ever did it was when Pulse X launched, because I worked really hard for my money, so I wanted to be well advised before I took something risky. So I figured, safest protocol, like, Pulse X. I was pretty sure Richard wouldn't rug anything. So so off of that, I went through two coins that I liked a lot, Pulse and Hex. So I was like, look, as far as the permanent loss goes, the APR was so high. I wasn't really worried, and I liked both coins. But Will touched on
Actually,
this
could you go into
earlier.
more detail about that impermanent loss? Because I know that's incredible. You know what? Actually, let's hold off on that for a second. Let's get a little bit more in depth with exactly what is LP, right? Liquidity providing, right?
Sure. So, okay, why is somebody going to give me yield for liquidity providing? Okay, so let's talk back in the caveman days. Liquidity providing, this has a value only because I can trade for something. I'll give you 10 seashells for one orange. If I have 10 seashells and I can't get shit for it, it's worth nothing. LP is when you are allowed, when somebody wants to trade, they use your money as a way to change your coins to exchange. That's what gives anything value. The government doesn't give some value. The only thing that gives some value, honestly, is people. If I'm saying, hey, you have a car dealership, well, I'm gonna give you money for that car. That's what I want. You know what I mean? So it's basically just the exchange of coins. So that's what LPing is: getting yield for providing a service.
Yep. You hit the nail on the head there. The
Thanks. I'm a carpenter.
the the thing that just blew my mind, that I've only come to realize in the last year or so, is that, like, what is value? Like what you were saying earlier, if you've got these 10 seashells and nobody gives a fuck about seashells, then they're worth nothing. But if you've got
Correct.
10 seashells and everyone else and their mother is like, holy fuck, the world's out of seashells, I need these seashells, right? Whether they're useful, whether they look pretty, whether they have some sort of form or function or whatever, like all those little, looking pretty, being useful, all that shit, that's what in the crypto sphere we would call narratives, right? So, like, Bitcoin, everyone fucking knows about Bitcoin, everyone loves Bitcoin. It was the first in, it's the best dressed, it's worth, well, we'll say for the all intents and purposes, it's worth the most. It's like it's got this this narrative that follows it around wherever it goes, and the narrative can't be destroyed, or, well, it can be destroyed. It will fluctuate throughout time and throughout markets. People will change their minds on, like, oh, Bitcoin's worth a lot or Bitcoin's worth a little or whatever the fuck. Same thing with these seashells, right? If they're pretty, if they serve some sort of use. Same thing with gold, same thing with US dollars, same thing with yen, same thing with won, same thing with, like, gasoline or
Sure.
petrol or whatever. Everything has value because people come together, like the market, right? People come together and they decide, like, oh, I want this thing because of X, Y, and Z story. Whether the story is like a practicality or whether the story is like a something mimetic, right? Like we all just agree that this thing is good, you know. It's a really strange conclusion to come to when you realize that, like, oh, this little 6-inch long square green $1 bill, like, what is it? You know, it's fucking nothing. It's a piece of cotton and paper with some ink on it that everyone decides for some fucking reason. We all agree on the same narrative, like, oh, this is worth $1. I can go and I can get, well, a half a candy bar now, right?
Sure.
But back in the day, you can get a candy bar or 5
Well,
candy bars
well,
or whatever the fuck. But
people have that notion because back in the day, it used to actually be backed by something. So
yeah,
people have been classically conditioned to say this is worth something. But if you want to talk
Mhm.
about value, my favorite one to talk about is diamonds. Like, hey, look,
Oh yeah,
we found the stone. Let's take like 95% of them and lock them up, and not let anybody else have them, and we'll just charge
yep.
whatever the fuck we want.
And that's yielding. That's yield
That's
farming and
yeah.
staking right there, baby. That is like the OG staking is diamonds. It's like we're gonna not let anyone have them, and because we're not letting anyone have most of them, then the fucking ones that we do have are worth a lot of money.
Think
The
about it. It
same thing in
works.
fucking crypto.
Scarcity. Yeah, like
It's called
Bitcoin.
mining too. That's what's
Yeah,
funny.
there you go. But also
Yep.
scarcity. So that's why I like coins that don't have this absolutely enormous amount, and that can be scarce to an extent, or there's a lockup protocol, or there's a buy and burn, something. You have to have some game theory, unless people
Yeah,
are just
like
like,
you're in
okay,
finance.
yeah.
But yeah, Josh, so you got something for us as well?
Yeah.
Well, I just want to make sure that I understand this because I mean, you guys know me. I mean, I know a little bit about what LPing is. I know a little bit about this, but I'm always growing. I'm always trying to learn more. First thing I want to do is make sure I have an understanding of what LPing is, and then I have a question for you guys. So
Yeah, shoot,
if
brother.
we're going to use Jeff's example, let's say I have 100 seashells and 10 oranges. Okay, so I have 100 seashells and I have 10 oranges, and I bring those into the LP pair and I say, here you go. So if I'm understanding this correctly, what that will allow, Nate, is if you wanted to come into that pair that I have and exchange 2 oranges for 20 seashells, you would be able to do that through my liquidity pair, and then I would be able to earn incentive on bringing that to pass.
So
Is that correct?
I'll say it like this. So for the most part, yes, correct. This is a better way to put it, right? Let's say all that I have is seashells and I have a couple of oranges, right? One orange is worth like 20 seashells. All right, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and put that into a liquidity pair because what I actually want is not necessarily this, but I want a chocolate bar instead. Well, here's this other person over here who doesn't have any seashells and very, very, very few oranges, and he wants more oranges, right? So what I do then is I'm like, here's the seashells, here's more oranges for you. I'm going to put them together. Here you go. In exchange for allowing you to use those as you will, I want you to make me some candy bars and go ahead and just one at a time, fun size at a time, right? A little bit at a time, a little bit of a drip. Now I have my candy for after every lunch, right? Or after every dinner. I can be like, hey, there we go. That's ultimately what LPing is. Okay. Now let's go ahead and take a crypto example. All right. Crypto example is going to be with, let's go ahead and have a look here. Pulse X, right? And then Pulse. Okay, cool. But what I really want is an incentive token. So that way I can start putting that into a new farm. So then I'm going to provide liquidity and be like, hey, I want this token, right? And they'll give it to me and then I can move it. But we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah, there's okay, so I understand that aspect. I've heard a lot of different I've heard of both double side staking, and then I've heard of single side staking. So I think what you just explained was double side. So when we're talking about the single side staking aspect, I think something like Phantom is a good example of that, where you can take the Spooky Swap coin, the Boo coin, and you can single side stake that. What happens with that money right there? If what's the difference between that and a double sided, I guess? What would be my reason for doing that versus a double? A double sided LPing versus a single siding stake. What would be the reason I would want to do that?
Well, we got our buddy Tracker who just joined in. Hey, Tracker, do you want to get this one? Welcome.
Sound check tracker.
Yeah, right. Sound check. Check, check,
Can't hear you,
check.
buddy.
Well, while he's loading up, I'll give you the quick answer, Josh. The answer is impermanent loss. With single-sided staking, you don't have to worry about impermanent loss.
Okay.
You're locking it up. So you are locking this coin up. You're not going to hurt the price. So there's no impermanent loss. You're not combining with something. There's no orange seashell. There's just seashell. And I have a market. I'm saying, hey, you're not going to dump the seashell to mess up my market price. So I'm going to reward you a little bit. You're going to get a smaller reward, but there's no risk. I mean, there's a risk. There's a risk, but there's no impermanent loss. But your risk is negated. The risk is there whether you single side stake or not. If you have a coin that's going to go to zero, it's going to go to zero regardless of if you single side stake. So if you're talking about a risk from that way, there's if you believe in a coin, there's no downside to single side staking.
Now, Jeff, would you mind explaining for the folks?
Can
at
you guys hear
home
me?
What is impermanent loss?
Can hear you.
All right, thanks, guys.
Essentially, let's say you're trading back and forth with coins and one coin goes up more than the other one exponentially, and you end up getting more of the coin that does lesser. You would have done better if you wouldn't have traded at all. If you would have provided zero liquidity and just rode the coins by themselves, just organically. So there is a chance for loss. That's why a lot of people say that they don't like to LP unless it's over like 50%, because that will, if both their quality coins, that should negate any impermanent loss. If they both rise pretty decently similar. So let's say one does a little bit better, but it had to do over 50% better, which is rare. If it's two coins that are close, you know.
So
Gotcha,
is the reward to do a double-sided stake, is that a higher payout more so than the single-sided stake?
100%. Absolutely.
Okay. So that makes sense. So when you're talking about something with impermanent loss, yeah, it's a higher risk of losing coins, but the payout is a lot better.
Correct.
As opposed to going with the single-sided where I get no impermanent loss.
Yeah, I'll give you an example. Like with Celsius, they had single-sided staking, and you were getting like 5% for Ethereum. You're getting 5% ain't jack. You know what I mean? Compared to two-sided staking.
You average
Hey,
out
guys,
40%. Yeah. So
Hey,
one
guys, can
thing
I
I
jump
want to
in?
throw in there too is that one of the things I want to add into is what we're talking about is also farming technically. LPing has an extra thing that actually makes it separated from actual farming, right? This little extra thing is because you're providing the liquidity for a specific, like say Uniswap, right, PulseX, something like that, because you're providing a liquidity for them to use. Whenever you swap something or somebody swaps something, it doesn't matter who, but whenever they swap something, there's a fee, right? That fee that you swapped gets spread out to all of the liquidity providers, because of that liquidity providing that allows that swap to happen, because you're the one who provided. Someone wanted to, hey, you know what? I want some PulseX, so I'm going to buy some PulseX. I'm providing that a liquidity of PulseX, and so here I'm going to grab some, right? And I'll pay out, you know, a good fee, and it's like, okay, thank you for using our service. Now this fee is going to go to the people who have the liquidity providing, right?
Sure.
And so that's something that's really important, a really big difference that a lot of people don't really understand about liquidity providing versus just farming, right? So yeah.
Well, Nate, that was kind of the issue with PulseX.
Yeah.
With version 1 and version 2. With version 1, people were just getting the incentive token and the fees were going 100% to the buy and burn. And then with V2, you're not getting the ink token. I think you're just strictly getting the fees.
Yeah, you're just getting fees.
Yeah, but to add to that, guys, the thing about everybody made such a stink about that, not getting that buyout, and that's why they traded V2, because they were trying to fix that problem. But it was still so minute that the APRs being high negated that even to be a moot topic. It was basically a nothing burger, more or less. Yes, it was falsifying, but that code was also brought over from, you know, that was tested on, I think on, was it Uniswap that they took it from over 2 years, 3 years worth of working. So they found the bug, but yeah, it was very insignificant. But to go back to what you guys were saying about the LP coins, the key that it's an art to it, because you're trying to find that best balance of what has a really nice high API or APY, APR. And honestly, a high to me is going to be at least 3 digits at least. And then you're looking for a really good combination of coins that are going to hold up. So if you get a coin, let's say, I don't know, let's just take the incentive token on PulseX, and you take the other pairs that it had. Pulse and PulseX are going to more or less outperform them on the downside because it's going to lose less. Incentive token was tanking. Now on the flip side, that incentive token can come back even more quickly if we start to recover, because if they utilize it, and I always go back and I compare it to the Optimism's LP farming, where they use the VEL or whatever they want to call it. That's the incentive token. But if you notice, that incentive token is popping up in all the juicy APR LPs that they have, and that adds what Nate was talking about. That adds liquidity to those pools. So the incentive token will become probably most likely more valuable if they use that incentive token into the LPs, the juicy, really high percent LPs. Now, you guys have talked about single and double staking. There's also, nth number of staking. On some of these, you go to like Beethoven X with Phantom and Optimism and some other ones, you might have, there could be 6, 7 coins that are making up that LP pool, which gets much more complicated understanding the LPs. But ultimately what it comes down to, if there's coins you really like and you're going to get paid to hold those, then sure, why not do that? You're going to get a permanent loss, but if they're both going to perform pretty well, you're going to be okay. And keep in mind, like I said originally, if that APR is very high, like when those LPs came out for on PulseX, where it was 1,500, 1,800% APR, and you had a stable coin mapped to something like, I don't know, what were the ones out there, PulseX or Hex or whatever it was still well worth it. Yes, you can get a permanent loss, you are, but those APRs are so high that it's going to nullify those impermanent loss. And that's even with the massive drops. I don't want to get into the numbers, but I ran some really heavy numbers when I was in them for the last 2-3 weeks after the first week, and still amazingly made out really well, even with the big tank and sell-off we had over those, I said week 2 through week 4 of what was happening on PulseX.
Same, yeah. And so, yeah, that's actually something that I do want to get into a little bit. Is I would suppose the best way to think about more than 50 or two-sided versus one-sided, right? Then you've got like multi-sided. And now multi-sided is very interesting because you've got a lot of like just different coins all in general, right? For PulseX, you've got different. I specifically went over to the main coins that I really love, right? I've got Hex. It was Hex, Hedron, Pulse, and PulseX. And it was just those 4. It's like, hey, just throw them in
Fox,
here.
huh?
Yeah, that was in Fox. Yep, that was my favorite one. I was looking at that. I'm like, these are like some of my absolute favorite coins, right? I know they're going to go up there. Here's the other thing too. A little bit of a kind of like a pro tip. Sometimes when you get into these pools, you can sit there and be like, it'll tell you the recommended, like say 2020 or whatever, right? What would that be exactly? Be like 25, 25, 25.
Percentage cut.
Yep, the percentage cuts. But yeah, it'll recommend, hey, just put all this in, right? And then what you want to do is you actually legitimately want to legitimately put those amounts in. You are allowed to put like say 100% Hex in, and then when you pull it back out, it'll give you all those coins. That is a technique you can technically do to get a position in a coin that you're actually don't have a position in. In my brain, that kind of seems like a little bit odd, because it's like, why not either just swap it or just bring some more stables in and just outright buy the coin? Kind of seems weird to me. But one tip that I do against impermanent loss is I'm going to be holding these coins anyways. I'm holding them to go up. This amount I want to hold, and so therefore I'm going to make sure they are well balanced so that when I do pull them back out, I'm getting that same amount of coin that I already had in there. And so at this point, it's just free fees for me and free like whatever token it is that I'd be getting as a reward, right? As an incentive reward. So that's something that I specifically kind of look for, right? There has been a few other ones, especially in like Reaper Farm and all that with FTM, Boo, and let's see, Beats and all that, right? I've had a little bit of playing around with it, but in general, that's something that you can do. So with that being said, let's see here. I guess the last question right here that I think we really need to get into is going to be, so why would you do it? Obviously, I gave kind of my whole thing about why it is that I do it, right? I work a lot. I don't have time to be sitting on the computer really researching things and or like just swapping around, right? No trades for me. I really can't do that. I would much rather have something continually giving me more and more and more coins as I'm just sitting on my bag, right? Hence why my strategy with how to put them into an LP. So yeah, what's everyone's thoughts on that? Like, why would you though?
It's residual income.
Simple.
Yeah, that's the game. And then when I LP, you know what I do with the free money I make from residual income?
Hookers and blow.
Well, that's a given. I put a certain percentage for that to the side. But what I do is with the gains, I buy more. So I have more residual income. It's the equivalent of buying a double and renting a double and then taking that money that I made off that double and then buying another double. So you are compounding residuals. That's why I do it, at least.
That's a good way to describe it. I mean, if you have money, or if you have a thing that has value and it's sitting around and it's just existing, you could either allow it to continue to sit around, and then if the price of it goes up, then you can sell it. If the price goes down, you can buy more, you know, or you can take that X, Y, and Z amount of that thing that you have that is valuable, and you can say, hey, I'm going to send it off to, you know, this program that it is used in. I'm going to provide value for a system that will then give me kickbacks for lending my money out to it, right? It's essentially you're being a banker, you're being a service provider, you're being a you are giving the community, you are giving a whole bunch of people an option to use your cash to trade around, to dabble in their own liquidity, you know, to sell, to trade, to buy, to do all this stuff. You are providing a service, and the fees that are generated from that, the kickbacks from that, is essentially just a mechanism to make your stuff work for you. It's like if you go out and you buy a bulldozer and you let it sit in your yard. Yes, the bulldozer has value, and every year the bulldozer company doesn't, like, they make less and less bulldozers or whatever. It's still like you can sell it in 5 years when the price goes up, or you can, you know, fucking send it out to go do a construction job somewhere, and then that bulldozer can make you money while it's out there being used, providing a service. This is the mechanism. Liquidity providing, farming, yielding, staking, all this stuff is just the mechanism to make your assets work for you without really having to, you know, go through a whole lot of caloric excess yourself.
Yeah. And then you could take that bulldozer money and you could buy another bulldozer.
Exactly.
And then from those 2 bulldozers, you can get another 3rd bulldozer.
Yep. And then sometimes people decide, for whatever fucking reason, hey, bulldozers aren't valuable anymore. And then your bulldozer goes to 0. This will happen occasionally. It's like it's part of the whole process, right? Like everything comes in ebbs and flows, and, you know, maybe somebody makes a better double bulldozer, or the people decide that they want to go back to horses, or whatever the fuck, you know. Like things will change. Nobody knows all the answers, but if you have an asset that's valuable and you can make it work for you, and that you know, set of decision making process falls within line of like what you're doing. Like Nate says, he works all the time, so it's like he can either let the money sit there and just be valuable, or he can take it and send it off to summer camp and make it do work for him. It's like,
for sure,
everyone has their own plans and their own systems, and this is just a tool that anyone can use to, if the goals align with, you know, what they want, they can take this tool out of the toolbox and get it working for them.
Yeah, you could use it for anything. You could have, you know, you might want to buy a house. You could just take your LP and wait till you get enough money for a down payment. There's all kind of stuff you could use it for. But that's why with LP, I will only do it in coins that I believe in. That's
Yeah.
just me. Now, say you get some stupid APR like 1,500%, then yeah, go ahead. But it still scares me like that. There's still a chance that those coins could just shit out. So I like knowing for sure that like I believe in these coins. I'm happy to LP.
Yep.
I'm happy
Yep.
to provide a service for this coin.
Yeah, a nice little fun analogy would be like you could buy your bulldozer that goes out and works for you, or you can buy buckets of ice cream that will melt in the sun. It's like you only choose good assets, right? You don't want to buy shit that's not going to work for you. If you buy your buckets of ice cream and you send them off to summer camp, or you send them off to the ditch diggers to go dig ditches and shit, they're like, this is just fucking buckets of ice cream, man. This is useless. And it's like, well, congratulations, you bought a shitty asset. So like Jeff's saying, you need to do your due diligence to make sure that when you buy these things that you're gonna make do work for you, they have to be good shit that you like believe in. Like everyone believes in bulldozers. Nobody believes in fucking ice cream, you know?
I love
Well, it's
melted ice
very
cream.
true. So yeah, Josh, you got a question for us?
Yeah, so if I have a decent amount of pulse chain and a decent amount of pulse X, would you guys recommend just taking everything that I want to make as much as possible, just throwing everything in there, throwing everything, or what's the best way to go about doing that?
If you're
So when
really
it comes to-
fucking poor, if you're really fucking poor and you've got no options, but you can still go out and make money later, then yeah, throw everything, like throw it all at the fucking table, right? Like if you're young and you're poor, fucking go for it. Like, go balls to the wall. If you're old, or if you're like risk averse, or if you do not have the ability to make more money, then you need to make more conservative decisions. Like LPing it's a decision. It's not like a recommendation. Like one recommendation won't apply to everybody. If I've got a lot of money and I don't want to lose my money, then like I probably shouldn't do every single LP that comes across my way. But if I'm like broke as shit and I got no hopes, like yeah, buy this fucking lottery scratcher ticket. Fucking make sure you do your research, you read the receipts, and you make sure you're buying a good lottery ticket. But like fucking go ham. If you're in a desperate place and you need to get out, like yeah, do everything that you can. And if you're
I'll add
not,
on to this actually. So
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Nate.
let me give you specifically, right, what it is, like why it is that I do what I do, right? Here's the thought process behind it, okay? So I work a lot, right? I don't have time to trade. So why am I going to be having something sitting there just going up in value when instead I could get yield on it, right? Now, with that being said, the idea for me is like, hey, as you say, balls to the walls, right? I'm going to work very hard and continually take the money that I'm getting from work, right? I'm going to put it into these coins, and I'm going to stake, farm, LP, whatever it is. I'm going to yield myself out about 80% of my bag, right? That's 80% for the next couple of years, however long I think it's going to be until I can start really trading and making a lot of money off things, right? It's sort of like time to take profits. Okay. So I'm going to be staking until then, gathering as many coins as I possibly can, money printer, right? Gathering as many coins as I can until it's time to take profits. Meanwhile, all I'm doing is not worrying, right? Check it maybe once every day, maybe once a week, right? So that way you can kind of figure out where the better APRs are at. But for the most part, just keep them going. Keep them printing, right? That's the reason why I'm a little more what some people would call degen and throwing most of my bag into just straight farming. A lot of people don't like that. It's usually recommended right around like say 40% staked out or yielding out, right? And then the other 60% keep it liquid, right? Generally, the reason for that being is that a lot of people generally only work like say 40 hours a week, and they have other things that they can do, right? Or when they get home, they can actually look at more things and kind of see like the charts and all that, and then make, hey, time to do a trade. Me, I really don't have that. So for me, though, I still want to make trades when they appear, right? So I'm still going to keep about 20% liquid, and that 20% will be the trading money, right? Here's the funny thing. For a lot of people, it's recommended you never trade anything ratio-wise or whatever anywhere above, say, 10%, right? Well, I've got 20% to be throwing around wherever I want to. So I can just do 10%. The other 10% is like safe food money, right? Just sitting there. So yeah, Jeff, you had something for us, right? Something to add to that?
I got a quick little disclaimer. Everything that we're saying, I don't think we included this earlier. Everything that we're saying is recommendations, not advice. This is not advice, not financial advice. This is all just like, hey, these are things that we do. You can do them too if you want, but you don't have to. You're your own fucking sovereign human being. None of this is financial advice. Can't fucking get us for it. Nice try.
So does that answer your kind of your question there, Josh?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like everyone's different. You know, like for me, like I obviously want to. I'm greedy. You know what I'm saying? Like I want to make as much money as possible. So you know, I do have a constant flow of DCA money coming in, but at the end of the day, I want to make as much money as possible. So, but I do like what Will said. It makes sense. It's, you know, it's sort of like the younger, the more, the younger you are, the more that you can make up if something goes wrong. But, you know, if you're more conservative, then maybe it might not be the best play. You know, that's like a microcosm of investing as a whole.
Sure.
So, yeah, that
Also-
makes sense.
Also, the amount of money. It's a 2x is very different from $10 to $1 million. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So
Absolutely.
as far as yield goes, if I have $100 and I'm going to yield farm it and I'm making 10%, ooh, I made $10. Now, if I have $1 million and I'm going to yield farm it, I just made $100,000.
Yep.
So it's not all one size fits all. It's you need to figure out your own personal needs. That's where a lot of people mess up. Ooh, this guy did this. You have no idea why he did it. He might have fucking medical bills. And oh, my medical bills are this much. Well, there's how much money I need a month. So you have to figure out like what you need to do, what your goals are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. That's a good point. Because when I was in the chat with you guys over the last few weeks, you know, when I was LP and I was trying to give you guys also the background of why I was doing it so you understand where I was coming from. I didn't have a problem throwing most of my coins into the stable / you know, Pulse LPs when they were at 1,800, 1,500, 8% APR, because I was also had 10-year stakes for every year you staked out. So I was already heavily loaded up on the backside. I was looking at more of an opportunity to capitalize because I looked at an opportunity that Pulse was going up. It was a blessing in disguise too, because when I moved out the first week, I let everything ride, and then I jumped into the LPs on this first week that Pulse Chain was live. And that told me which ones seemed to be balanced, which ones were good. And also I didn't have a problem taking that risk of taking that Pulse going into USDT stable because it worked out beautifully. Not only did I swap over my Pulse, half my Pulse bag into USDT towards the very top of the Pulse price, but also as I was going down, I was having a permanent loss, but I was getting a permanent loss into a coin that I wanted to accumulate already, which was Pulse. Because UST was holding steady at $1, Pulse kept dropping, so my bleed of my permanent loss was bleeding into Pulse, which was accumulating. I also had all that stable coin still sitting on the side, even though I was DC. It was theoretically it was DCAing as it was going down, and then towards we got to the bottom, and the APRs I felt like had gotten down to around 350 to 300% APR. I felt like at that time that's when Pulse was at a temporary bottom. Decided to get out of the LP, take the rest of my stable, and then basically pick up the massive bag in the Pulse at the very bottom, and then load it up in Pulse. So then at that point I was out, but by doing that, it allowed me to not only protect my downside by moving into stable, because I thought it now, if it had gone the other direction, oh, it would have been brutal because I would have had a permanent loss into a stable coin and I would have been bleeding Pulse as it went up in price. But you had to, I guess what I'm mostly trying to say here is, like, it was a good point. You really got to know what the other person's objective is and all the pieces that you have to decide before you get into these pairs. Because keep in mind now, I was only in those pairs for 2-3 weeks, accumulating an incentive token, and every day I was accumulating 1 or 2 times every day, swapping those yields into stable coin as well, building up my bag to buy in lower. So there's a lot of strategies that were going on at that time. The timing had to be there. The right pairs had to be done. The charts had to respond properly, and allowed me to do it. And I got lucky. It worked out. It not necessarily does it always work that way. So you do have to protect yourself. And like what Nate was saying, you need to allocate how much you want to, put into your bags. And to go back to originally, you guys were asking, why people do it. And I think he nailed it. You don't have time to trade. So if the whole point right now in the bottom of this, when we were going into the bear market and we were at the lows and we're still very low, the whole point is to accumulate more coins. And then by doing that, you're earning coins as you're just sitting and holding what you're already going to hold. There's no difference between this and a dividend and a stock. I mean, there are differences, obviously, but what I'm saying, it's the same likely. You're getting paid in your coin. So really at these levels, do you really care what the prices are? You don't. You're accumulating as much as you can. So when you are ready to go up with the next bull run, you've basically built your bag. So really it's stacking those coins on top of one another.
Yeah, I like that.
Well said.
One little thing that I was doing was, since I have some Hex staked, the way I was looking at it is, you know how Hex on Pulse Chain has been outperforming Pulse slightly. So obviously you're gonna have you're gonna be gaining more of the other coin. So you're gonna be losing more P-Hex and gaining more Pulse. So whatever the percentage is, if you have your Hex staked, that's making up for the loss. So you could literally, if you have your Hex staked and your P-Hex is bleeding in the Pulse from the LP, your stake is covering your Hex loss, but you're still getting the incentive. So literally the staking of the Hex itself is keeping the portfolio balanced, and you can literally just yeet all of the yield into whatever you want. Nate, that was a reference for you. The yeet.
Oh, thank you. You're so
No
nice.
problem. But
That's
think
what
about
I
it.
do. I'm not even gonna lie too. Like, that's technically what I do. Is, I mean, we're gonna go into strategies here, in a different video, but basically what I tend to do is I do what's called rehypothecating, right? And rehypothecating is taking something and it's like, I'm earning. Now I'm going to grab that and I'm going to put it over here now, so that putting it in here, now I can earn, and take that and like move it back over to this one, right? And so it's like compounding. Just
You're feeding the machine. You're just feeding the machine. Yep.
Sure.
Wow.
Exactly.
Feeding the machine that produces the feed.
Exactly.
Correct. Yep.
Well,
Infinite loop.
I just thought it was kind of cool that if you had your Hex staked, the Hex yield acted as an anti-impermanent loss defense, because it is providing coins for free. I just thought that was really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
Another way to look at that is those stakes are long-term. That's long-term investing. The LPing to me is more like a midterm. Well, it depends. It could be short or midterm investing. How you look, depending on how you look at it. But what you're saying is that by being diversified across, timelines, as well as having that structural foundation in place, that allows you to play around with other ideas. Yeah. I agree.
And Josh, to get back to you, I remember you were asking how much you were doing. So when I finally got done talking to Nate and I got bit the bullet and started LPing, I had like 90% of my PX and Pulse coins in that pool, only because I knew that, I mean, at this time the APR was like 210%, and I knew there was no way that one was going to outperform the other. I didn't know. I had a feeling, and I did really well off of it, that one would not outperform the other that much, and it ended up working out.
Yeah, it's APR chasing. It's actually a strategy that you can do, but like say with Billy, sometimes that APR chasing can go wrong in a rug, unfortunately. So
I was about to say in a shit coin. Yep.
It can work out too good. I mean, me and Nate were jumping around, and I know he's going to get into this in the next one. We were jumping around from different ecosystems on LPs. We were jumping on Binance, Phantom, then on to OP. I mean, we were jumping all over the place.
Yeah. You gotta have balls for steel for that, man. That would give me too much anxiety. That's why I only LP and stuff I like. But y'all are renegades with that shit. So more power to you.
So Nate, I can't be on much longer, man. So I do apologize for being such a slack bastard, man. So I apologize. But what I will say is this: if you want to get up anytime this week, or we can sit down and talk it through on the strategy stuff, I'd love to jump into there and have a discussion with that, so I can be a little bit more prepared when you get into strategies. Because I'm assuming you're recording everything now on everything. This is more on the fundamentals, I take it, correct?
Actually, we're going to be kind of going through a lot of different stuff. So actually, that's a good point to bring up. So yeah, actually, we're going to go ahead and end this one right here. Basically, this is what it is, right? Why are you going to LP? What is LPing, right? Yielding out everything. It's a great strategy. It's really important. I hope everybody here learns something. And yeah, go out there and kill it, guys.